Hey, everybody, welcome into the Blogger Bowl. I am Matt alongside Dan and Phil. We are live recapping first off, we're live. That's cool. We haven't done this part before. And we're recapping actual played college football games, which we also haven't done before. And we're going to preview some actual games that we haven't done before. First, Dan showing off the home field apparel LSU shirt. My guy, me and Phil's guy, Brian Kelly down there now. Guys, week 0. What's your biggest impression? What's your biggest takeaway? Let's just start it from there. I guess we owe the people an apology after hand up. That's on us after our Big Ten preview. I wouldn't call it a Nebraska love fest, but like a Nebraska like fest. No.
I'm sorry. I thought you think there's a change of scenery would have different results, but Scott Frost has just a completely unthinkable onside kick as soon as he gains momentum, and then Casey Thompson, formerly of Texas Longhorns.
I have a feeling Dan's going to go off on Casey.
Yeah,
Thompson
just like I thought. Adrian Martinez is gone. There's not going to be a late game crippling interception with a new quarterback, and then there was a late game crippling interception with. I think Nebraska is truly just cursed, and I think they're still going to be a pain in the ass this year in a couple different spots because that's what they do. But like, they are who we thought they were.
Yeah, I mean, look, okay, so I'll do the Casey Thompson thing second because, like, whatever. Here's the thing about Scott Frost, right? Like, we sat here and we said there was going to be no way that they could be what they were last year. That just seems completely improbable last year, the way that they lost so many close games. But here are two factoids about Nebraska. These are both coming from ESPN. They're the first Power 5 team to lose 9 consecutive one-score games since Iowa State did it from 2014 to 16. And since hiring Scott Frost in 2018, they are 5-21 in one-score games. Now, you can say that there could be some potential variance there, or that could just be bad luck or whatever. But, man, this is what, year 5? 2018 is year 5. Yeah, year 5. Like, you are what your record says you are, regardless of whether or not the stats or whether or not you can sit here and say, oh, well, there's something bizarre or unique or whatever. Like, you are who we thought you were. And I feel stupid for sitting here saying, oh, well, there's no way they can be any worse than it can be as bad as it was last year because it's self-inflicted. You talked about the onside kick, which was a completely just dumb decision. And it's not even like second guessing it. Like, I love being aggressive. I love coaches who do silly things. Like, objectively, I find it hilarious. But like, or subjectively, I find it hilarious. But objectively, in that spot, like, what are you even thinking doing that? Like, go out there and play defense and go out there and try to protect that lead and do what you do. And then, like, yeah, he owned up to it after the game and he was like, oh, well, that's on me. Yeah, like, no shit, that's on you. Like, of course that's on you. You're the head coach. Even if the kicker decided to do that on his own, you have to own up to that. But he also sits here and says, and the quote got a little bit misconstrued after the game, but he said, we as an offensive staff have to learn you have got to be a little more creative in this league. When everyone was kind of saying when everyone was kind of saying in the moment that he was throwing his offensive coordinator, Mark Whipple, under the bus there. And that was a like not super harmonious thing. Like, he didn't really want to give up the play calling duties. Like, that was Trev Albert saying, like, look, man, there's going to be an ultimatum here. You need to focus on coaching. We'll bring in an offensive coordinator. And even if he said, we as an offensive staff need to do this, that is a very clearly pointed like jab at your offensive coordinator, which you don't need to do. Just own up and say, this is on me. We lost these close losses. They're on me, and move on with it. As far as Casey Thompson is concerned, I really root for him. He walked into it like the dysfunction at Texas. He survived it for years. He thought about transferring once, stuck it out, got his chance to start last year. And, like, I don't blame him at all for leaving when Texas went out and got Quinn Ewers. But it was very familiar to me watching that as a Texas fan because it was great. There were some great moments for him throughout that game, particularly early. But when things start to go wrong for him, the game starts to speed up for him and the mistakes start to happen. And you kind of just saw on display why Steve Sarkisian kind of knew he needed to go into the portal and go get a quarterback with a much higher upside than Casey Thompson did. Because even before the bad mistakes, the turnovers, the really bad throws started, he was missing throws down the field. He was just the inconsistency which had plagued him throughout his time at Texas last year when he was really good for the most part, but the inconsistencies were a problem. And then like the collapses late weren't entirely on him. And this one's not entirely on him either, but it was just all very familiar watching that experience. But Scott Frost is done. Like October 1st, his buyout goes down. You can bet on Bet Online, I think it is. You can bet on will he survive the season, and I think it was like minus 500 that he doesn't. Like I think he's now minus 1,000 to be the first coach fired in the Big Ten at some books, or maybe at that book. You can get him at minus 500 to be the first coach fired in the Big Ten, and I think plus 140 to be the first coach fired in college football this year. And if they don't beat Oklahoma in a couple of weeks, which seems unlikely at this point, like October 1st, see ya Scott Frost, and they're looking for another coach, and they're wandering the wilderness. My last point, because I wrote this down, I forgot to say this. This was from Reddit CFB. After the loss, he is now 15-30 at Nebraska. Bo Pelini was fired after going 67-27. If Frost wins his next 50 games in a row, he would still have a worse record at Nebraska than Bo Pelini did. That's it. I'm done with Nebraska.
So you're telling me there's a chance? All he really needs, I mean, I guess not all he needs to do. Oklahoma just became a must-win game for him now. Mm-hmm. Instead of going into that game, what's the fourth game of the year? Instead of going into that game 3-0 and having like some good momentum and just kind of needing to play a good game, and if you're 3-0, you go lose a tough luck loss to Oklahoma where it's a back and forth battle. Okay, fine. You still kind of have the goodwill of the fan base back. If you don't win that game now, it doesn't matter how you lose. If you lose in a close one, the narrative's going to be, again, you can't win a close game. That game is now must win. And he talked about our offensive staff needs to get more creative. That's fine. What did Northwestern do that was creative in the second half? They said, we're going to run the ball down your throat. Yeah, we said, we're going to run the ball down your throat, and I don't think you can stop me. And they couldn't stop me. That's not getting more creative. That's getting tougher. So maybe – I don't know. Don't worry about making your offensive linemen throw up 15 times practice. If they can't bully a defensive line, that doesn't mean shit. Maybe put them back in the weight room a little bit more. Maybe test their mental toughness more. I don't know. But they just got their asses kicked. That's not getting creative. That's getting your ass kicked. They got their ass kicked. They got bullied by Northwestern.
Yeah, and I guess we were wrong to doubt the every other year Pat Fitzgerald that's been going on lately.
It's a thing. It's officially a thing.
It's not. I mean, it's too early to say if it's a thing, but I hope that becomes a thing where it's just like maybe it's just the Fitzgerald hangover. But again, it was great to see a Northwestern team at the end of the game just absolutely their offensive line just bullied Nebraska. And with the Fitzgerald team, they played tough, they played inspired. They're a fun team to root for. I think I liked what I saw from Ryan Helinski at quarterback there, who's getting kind of a fresh start from South Carolina. But again, they're an easy team to root for, and I love that it came down to the end of the game. It was you're not going to be able to stop us running the ball, and you're going to know we're going to run the ball. And what did they do? It was like 11 or 12, maybe even 13 straight runs, just straight down the field. And it was just like beautiful, like Big Ten afternoon football, and it felt right.
And that is, if you're the old school Nebraska alum who used to, Nebraska, obviously the football in the 80s and 90s is not what football is now, but that's how Nebraska just used to win football games. They ran the option right down your throat. They dared you to stop them knowing you couldn't do it. And now here you are. I like Northwestern. I'm a Northwestern fan. I think Fitz is doing a great job with that program. You just got bullied and ran the ball down your throat by Northwestern, a team whose win total was 4.5, I believe, headed into this season. By the way, they're likely to be 4-0 now after that win. So hope you took the Northwestern over 4.5 wins. I really wish I did. We couldn't have been more wrong about Scott Frost in Nebraska in that Big Ten preview. Hand up, that's on us. Good on us for admitting that our first show we messed up with our predictions.
Hey, week zero, week one, everyone should get a pass because you don't know who teams are until they play a game. So again, you can make all the predictions in the world, but week 0, week 1, I'm giving us a gentleman's pass.
I'm not giving us a pass.
I was wrong.
I'm the deciding vote. I give us
personal accountability, and I was wrong on this. Northwestern last year was 117th in the country in EPA per play. Had a very good EPA per play, and just want to give a shout out to Peter Skoronsky, their left tackle, who is going to be a first-round pick, and film from that game might help him jump into even potentially into the top 10. 39 pass block snaps, 0 sacks allowed, an 89.8 PFF grade. Arguably the player of the week across all of college football in week 0, just for that performance in that game. And I talked about it a little bit. I hate Pat Fitzgerald football, but yeah, man, they just bullied, like you said, they bullied them, they beat them up, and they were more physical. And they hate all of those cliches, but they also said they only threw up 4 times. Their offensive lineman said they only threw up 4 or their O-line coach said they only threw up 4 times during camp when Nebraska was throwing up 15 times a day or whatever it was. So, hey, maybe that's something that's actionable going forward. We need to find out how much offensive linemen are puking during camp to really help us handicap some of these games going forward.
I mean, Pat Fitzgerald football might not be fun to watch. I mean, it certainly really isn't all that fun to watch, but credit to him, like he knows the style his team has to play to win every year. And sometimes if you have a guy like a Kane Coulter that he had a few years ago, you can open up the offense a little bit more, get a little more fun. Depends on his personnel every year, and he kind of tweaks his schemes to their personnel, unlike some coaches that just decide, no, this is the way I coach, you're going to play that way, or we're going to live or die going like that. Pat Fitzgerald coaches to the strengths of his team, and I think that's a sign of a really good coach. That's why we see him win 10 games every other year.
I'm with you.
Anything more on that one, guys? Phil, Nebraska, Northwest. Actually, one more thing. That was a fantastic uniform game. I thought Northwestern's all purples looked really good under the lights. I thought the white and red of Nebraska with the white helmet, I thought those uniforms worked very well together.
Yep.
I do. My one other thing, this will come back to, this is my remember my stump speech from when I said I should be the commissioner of college football. And it's, if you only watch college football to find out who wins the national championship, you don't understand college football. Mm-hmm. That game was the perfect example of why college football is the best sport on the planet. A 12:30 random ass Big Ten game on a Saturday between two teams that now look like their ceilings are probably 6 or 7 wins, was fun as hell, was stupid as hell. There was a lot of random things. It wasn't particularly good football at times, but that doesn't matter because we're not expecting that. If I want good football, I'll go watch the Buffalo Bills or the Kansas City Chiefs on Sundays. On Saturday, I want wackiness with my, occasional Ohio State, Alabama, something good. Perfect college football game, no notes.
Dan, you seem to have the most notes and most prep work done before the show than of all of us. Why don't you tell us, where do you want to go next? What game from week 0?
I just real quick, because I want to take accountability for when I'm wrong. I do want to go when I'm right on something. On Brown Bag Bets on Friday, Wyoming team total under 15.5, never in doubt in a 38-6 game against Illinois. My thinking all season, or at least in the offseason, was Illinois was going to be an under team a lot. And there's another thing about this that I'll get to in a second too at the end of this. Remind me if I don't get to it. Just in terms of this game and specifically though, Illinois, the analytical numbers are a little bit less flattering for them than what it would appear. The defense was great, 69% stop rate. They forced 3 turnovers, but they had 2 touchdowns worth of turnover luck their side. They had a 0.09 EPA per play, so slightly above 0. So it was what you would expect from Illinois. The Indiana game this weekend is probably going to be kind of an ugly game. But I realize now when I wrote this down, the thing I wanted to bring up, and this game is a good example of something that is going to be overarching for the rest of this show and what we do on Thursday. And it's this: when you're making your bets for week 1 or week 0 in college football, just know that the lines for those games have been out for a long time, and the sharp bettors have already hammered those numbers to all who knows what. And this game was a prime example of that, because I completely forgot the number I had betted at, and I bet the under at 44 in this game, and it had dropped a few points from at that point. And a very sharp bettor on social media, the Tailgate Tent, who go check out his interview with Andy and Drew on the deep dive from a couple weeks ago. He gave that number out and it plummeted down. I bet it at 44. It ended up pushing. I put it in at 43.5 on the BetSports app. Obviously, that's a loss. So those kind of differences are that kind of stuff is going to make a difference right now. You're still going to see some stuff. Even today, there have been some games that have been getting beaten up one side or the other across college football, but a lot of the stuff has been really beat up. Some of it's not going to matter too much, I don't think. There's a game this weekend in Atlanta between a national championship contender in the ACC and one of the worst teams in Power 5 football that I was talking to someone today. The number might have to start with a 4 for me to bet the underdog in that game. That number's been beat to hell. I don't care. Most of the time, though, you really need to look and see where the number was, when it was moving, how it was moving, because it is going to matter in some of these cases. And this was just a game where, at the end of the day, the total lands on 44. If you bet it early, you win. If you bet it late, you probably lost. So just keep that in mind as you're preparing for the rest of this week, for Thursday, for Friday, for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. awesome, by the way. We haven't even talked about that at all. That we start Thursday and we have football all the way up until Monday. But just keep that in mind. I know, Phil, you actually watched some of that game. I didn't get to see any of it. My hotel room at Disney didn't have Big Ten Network, but I got to see some of the Nebraska game at least.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Chase Brown, the running back from Illinois. He's a super strong back from, shout out, St. Stephen's Episcopal in Bradenton, Florida, the alma mater of my wife. So he is
wondering where that was going.
Yeah. So he's a really good back. He was the 1,000-yard rusher last year. Put up 150 yards this game. He's just a really solid back. And also I was kind of pleasantly surprised, not statistically, but just from, the naked eyes perspective of watching Tommy DeVito, the transfer from Syracuse. It looked pretty sharp in the offense. So I was, again, it's kind of what I expected out of Illinois, but I'm seeing more progress where they don't look like kind of like a sloppy football team. They're getting more into more of a middle of the pack,
middle of the road Big Ten team.
Should be a middle of the road Big Ten team, as opposed to like a bad Big Ten team, which I want them to be good because I think their uniforms pop when they're good as well.
It seems like I didn't get to watch much of that game myself. After the Northwestern Nebraska game, I was away from the TV, but just looking at the box score, watching the highlights, Illinois beat up on a really bad Wyoming team, but they didn't trip over their feet at all. They didn't stumble. It didn't take, a lot of effort. It didn't take a slow start in the first half. They just kind of controlled the game for all 60 minutes. They did what Brett Bielema teams try and do, and that's just run you to death. 260 yards on the ground. They threw efficiently enough. Yeah, it's Wyoming and doesn't really show us or doesn't really tell us a whole lot about what they're going to do when the Big Ten rolls around. But I think it showed us that, we can at least expect them to be competent playing Big Ten football, which is a lot more than we can say about this program than we did before Brett Bielema got here. And it seems like the slow burn, the slow building a program kind of thing is working out for Brett Bielema. Now, whether or not he sticks around for that whole thing or if he has a good year or two and decides to bolt and try and go for another middle to lower tier SEC program and fail, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But that was a very good start for Illinois fans and about all you can ask for. I mean, you can only beat the teams put in front of you, and they absolutely dominated Wyoming was put in front of them, who was a bad football team.
It's true. Phil, what else did you watch? Did you see anything else this weekend? Did you get to watch anything?
I watched some of the Florida State Duquesne game. Not much together there. I think I'm higher.
Did you see the kid whose pants were up to here?
That was wild, and I still need to know if those were pants or if that was an undershirt. I'm just assuming it's pants, but Duquesne is a pretty solid 1AA football team, or FCS. I still call it 1AA. But I mean, Florida State looked competent. They looked strong. Again, you can't really gather much from them playing Duquesne, but I think I'm higher on Jordan Travis than most people in terms of, I think people put him in a run-only bucket, but I think he can be pretty efficient passing ball. And they also have a 6'7" wide receiver, which was kind of cool. I can't remember the guy's name, but he caught a deep fade. So Florida State looked pretty strong, and I'm excited to see them play LSU. That's a Sunday game, right? Yeah. Excited for them to play on Sunday. If there's been some good chatter coming out of Florida State. I know it's been up and down on the recruiting front, but I think I'm higher on Florida State than most people, and a little bit higher on Norvell than most people. Mostly because I did see some games last year that really competed super, super hard. And so again, they didn't quit at the end of the year. So I'm excited to see them play LSU. And this game, again, not much to gather other than they beat a bad team, but they did nothing to shoot themselves in the foot, which is what you want for the first game.
Matt, what about you? Did you watch any ball? You were a little busy this weekend too.
I was a little busy this weekend. I was out of town in Aspen for a wedding, good friend. But I did see some of the UConn game, and while UConn did end up losing to Utah State, hey, they looked like a competent football team. And so shout out them. That's nice. And if you're a UConn fan, I know, Dan, that's kind of your backyard. Not that you root for UConn, but they might not be the worst team in the FBS this year. That was nice. They got off to a nice start. They have a semi-competent head football coach, so good for them. But that's about it. What else did you see this weekend, Dan, that you like?
Matt, quick note on UConn, because anytime I can shout out the Holy Cross Crusaders, I will. Last year, they struggled out of the gate and lost to the Holy Cross Crusaders, and so I think the Holy Cross Crusaders just broke their spirit last year and forced them to lose that many games. So call it what you will, but death by Holy Cross is a takes a while to get over.
Actually, one more reaction: the UNLV turnover slot machine. That's awesome. That is so cool.
I spend way too much time.
I don't know how they got it, how they spent money on a slot machine for the sideline, but that's awesome. If you don't think that's awesome, then you don't like college football.
I spend too much time on Twitter because they did that last year and people freaked out over it last year, but and I assumed everyone had seen it, but I guess not, because I saw several people the other night be like, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's cool, it's hilarious," but like they were doing that last year. I was like, so I just spent too much time on Twitter. The only other game that I got to watch any of was the barn burner between Nevada and New Mexico State. That was an interesting one where a lot of people were big on, or not so much big on, New Mexico State. They thought that Nevada was overvalued. That line got hammered down. I don't remember where it closed at, but ended up being a really close game that I think was probably more about how bad Nevada is than any improvement that New Mexico State might have made under Jerry Kill. I mean, this was a team that Nevada had negative EPA per play, 15.6 points on turnover luck, and I think they won by one score. I can't remember what the final score ended that game being. And, I mean, New Mexico State might have had a chance if they'd started their true freshman quarterback, a guy in Gavin Frakes, who you'll probably see at a bigger power group of five school next year after he plays a year at New Mexico State. The guy only started 1 year in high school, and he went to high school in Norman, Oklahoma. So like not necessarily like a small backyard, like place people don't have eyes on, but only started for 1 year, only had Ivy League offers. And then New Mexico State came in and gave him a chance to go FBS. And he played really well in the second half of that game. And that kind of leads me into, as a segue, we can get into the Thursday night games, because we'll get into the big ones. But something that I find super fascinating about this weekend is there's a game Thursday night, the Jerry Kill Bowl in Minnesota, as Jerry Kill, for some reason, New Mexico State, and this is the second time they've done this, played a week 0 game on Saturday and then go to play Minnesota on a Thursday. We dug up 4 instances. This is the 4th instance that we could dig up of this happening, of a team playing week 0 on Saturday and then a Thursday game. And New Mexico State did it against Minnesota in 2017 or 18. I can't remember what year, but if you haven't followed that, Jerry Kill, remember, he coached at Minnesota. He had all the health issues with the seizures and whatnot. And then his assistant, Tracy Claeys, took over for him. And when he got fired by Minnesota, Jerry Kill basically disowned Minnesota, said he was never going to step foot in that stadium again. And then when he took the New Mexico State job, didn't realize that they were playing Minnesota in his second game. So he has to go back. He has talked lots of shit about PJ Fleck. He does not like PJ Fleck at all, has not committed to a post-game handshake in that game. And the thing about it is the line's massive. I think it was 38.
I think it's 36 and a half, I think I saw.
My question is
36 and a half on FanDuel.
36 and a half. Is PJ Fleck going to run up the score on New Mexico State because Jerry Kill has just talked about how he doesn't like him as a person? Fascinating, game that's not going to be close. I'm interested to see what kind of this, going kind of against air, this Minnesota offense looks like, because we talked about it in our preview, changes of the offensive coordinator, Tanner Morgan in year 12 of college football, Mo Ibrahim is back. I want to see what they look like, but kind of one of those stupid college football subplots that's going to go under the radar. And we don't have to talk about this game anymore. I just thought that was interesting and segued off of watching some New Mexico State football on Saturday. But, I mean, I guess
it's just another example of why we should all love college football.
Handshake watch.
Watch. So I will say, I mean, there's 2 games on Thursday night that stand out. There's the backyard brawl for the first time since 2011, West Virginia going to Pittsburgh, and then we have Purdue hosting Penn State. I'll throw it out to the YouTube. Where do you guys want to start? Which game?
So backyard brawl.
Okay, yeah. Matt, do you? I'll say, I know, Matt, you're high on the old transfer quarterback from West Virginia. So why don't you kick us off?
Oh, we're going to backyard brawl.
Hold on, I'm pulling up my notes here. I don't like Pitt this year. I think the best thing they had going for them last year was obviously Kenny Pickett, Jordan Addison, and Mark Whipple, and all 3 things are gone. Keaton Slovis, for me, is just an underachieving quarterback. Do I think they probably still win the game? Yeah, because I'm not really sure what to expect from West Virginia, and I think Pitt's going to be able to run the football. But that's just kind of what this is going to come down to early. I think this is a game that you'll be able to tell early on who's going to win the game, how it's going to be dictated. Pitt, we know, is going to try to run the ball down your throat. because what we've heard from Pat Narduzzi is he didn't like how much they threw last year, so they're just going to try to run the ball. And when Pitt runs the ball, they win the game. And conversely, last year, the last few years, when West Virginia stops the run, they usually win the football game. That's how football games tend to go. If they can do that, I think they are going to be able to put up some points. I do like, obviously, JT Daniels. I like the aggressiveness of that offense. And I'm excited to see if that they can kind of return to form of, the Will Grier type days now that they actually have a consistent quarterback. Can they compete up front? I guess we're going to kind of find that out early and see how they see the kind of offensive line that they put together throughout the offseason. I think 7.5 is a lot of points. Dan, you said earlier, I think it was this morning, we were talking about the 51, I think it is, 50.5. That seems like a lot of points for these two, especially when you have a Pitt team that's just going to try to drain the clock. But I'm excited for this one. I'm excited to see what kind of West Virginia team we get, because I think this game will go a long way in telling you what kind of West Virginia team we're going to see the rest of the year.
I'm curious to see how mobile JT Daniels is going to be. I know he's been banged up, and so with an aggressive defense and a good defensive line, I think that's going to be a big storyline. I do still like Pitt in this game. I'm not buying them long term for the full season, but I think it'll be an opportunity for Keaton Slovis to not be asked to do too much. And I think he's not a world beater, and I don't think he's going to light the world on fire by any means, but I think when he's not asked to do much against, average to solid teams, I think he's a good quarterback when you're playing like average to solid teams when you're planning to run the ball, because he has good physical tools. And so he's not going to be asked to be stretched too thin. So I actually I like that 7.5 to get covered late by, a long sustained drive and either, a field goal or a touchdown late by Pitt to cover that 7.5.
So, yeah, Matt mentioned my like of the under, which I'll get to in a second. A couple things about this game. First and foremost, one of the reasons I like the under in this game, if you aren't like super hardcore into college football, if you're younger, because remember, they haven't played this game since 2011, this is one of the great rivalries in college football because it has seldom ever really mattered on a national landscape. Like the 2007 game is legendary. West Virginia was number 2 in the country. Pat McAfee missed like 5 field goals in that game. And Pittsburgh just mucked the hell out of that game up and won that game 13-9 to end West Virginia's national championship hopes. But by and large, West Virginia had some good teams historically. Pittsburgh had some good teams in the early 80s, the Tony Dorsett, Dan Marino games. And despite that, the game has never really mattered on a national stage, and it doesn't matter at all. Those are two fan bases that absolutely fucking hate each other, and that's awesome. And that's what makes the sport great. And I have this thought in the back of my head, which is if it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. I guess I can look at it this way. Losing rivalries is bad. Losing a rivalry like this is good. It is not a good thing. But maybe there's something to this idea where maybe rivalries sometimes should go away for a decade and let that hate fester and stew and then just let it all out. Morgantown is an hour. Morgantown's an hour from Pittsburgh. If you ever go to Morgantown, which I highly recommend, very cool town. Went to Morgantown for a college game day. Was actually surprisingly enjoyed myself a lot there. It's only an hour from Pittsburgh. You fly into Pittsburgh, hour drive, not far. These campuses are very, very close to each other. So it's a home game for Pittsburgh, but the West Virginia fans are going to travel. It's going to be packed. It's going to be a cauldron. There's going to be a lot of tension in that game, and I think it's going to be a slugfest kind of game. I think you're going to see nerves. I think you're going to see a game that there's not going to be a ton of points. I said it in our preview show, JT Daniels been in college for 7 years, and we have no idea if he's any good. He and Graham Harrell worked together at USC. I get it, but they're going to an air raid offense. It's an entirely new offensive system with an offensive line that got better as the season went along last year, but was below average on the whole last year against a really good defense. I completely agree with the idea of Narduzzi, who again this week, I think he talked about how inconsistent his wide receiver room is or something like that. But you don't lose a high Keaton, and I'm not even sure if I'm as down on Keaton Slovis as I know Phil is, but it's hard to maybe the percentage that he's as good as Kenny Pickett was last year is probably not high, regardless of how good he is. They have Kanata Mumfield, the transfer from Akron, I think is a good receiver. He ain't Jordan Addison. And Signetti comes in. We don't really know what kind of play caller he's going to be, but if Narduzzi has his way, they're going to be running the ball a lot more, and they're going to be slowing things down. So it's hard for me to see this game getting to a high-scoring kind of game. rivalry tension, everything to me just leans under. I played the under. 51 right now. I think there was a 52 out there somewhere today. If you can get that number, get it. But like you're getting to the point now where it's going to get close. Like if it gets to 50 below, you're kind of getting to that point where it's going to be tough. But I don't think we're going to see a lot of scoring.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I think we're going to see two teams try and do what they want to do. And Pitt, obviously, both the things they do best are stopping the run and running the football really well. Go Hawkeyes, Alyssa. I don't know who they play this weekend off the top of my head. I don't think it's South Dakota State.
You can clear out some of the show on Thursday for me and some thoughts on the South Dakota State Iowa game. I'm not even joking.
Well, there you go, Alyssa. Tune in on Thursday. Dan's going to give you a full preview of the Iowa game.
Alyssa might not want to hear them, but
fair enough. But it's just an old school rivalry matchup I'm looking forward to. And I think you're right. There's something to that big layoff in between rivalry games. I mean, Phil and I can probably speak one near and dear to the heart. The Notre Dame-Michigan rivalry took a few years off. And when they came back for that 1 year, when they opened up the season at Notre Dame Stadium in a night game, obviously that was one with a little more national implications than this one has. That was as intense as I've ever felt that rivalry before. So I think you're right. There is something to the maybe not wait 11 years to do it, but, not playing every year, playing every couple of years. I think there's something to feeling the intensity of that rivalry.
And I get the animosity of I guess Pittsburgh was the one who bailed first. Yeah, Pittsburgh bailing for the ACC, but then it's bullshit if you don't want to play. Get over the pettiness and play. That said, Texas and Texas A&M should never play again. Texas won the last game ever played between Texas and Texas A&M, and if they ever play again, it doesn't count. I know, Matt, we shift gears. I guess technically talking one Pennsylvania team still, but I know, Matt, on Brown Bag Bets today, you made the case. You're a big Purdue guy this season, so we'll let Brian Davey in the comments set the sun up for us. Hope y'all explain why James Franklin laying over a field goal against O'Connell and Brom.
I don't understand why they're laying it. I think they had their best unit last year was their defense, and they lost 6 starters. I mean, they get a couple guys back. PJ Mustapher, I believe, is the guy come back from injury, who's one of their better players, but I think it was a neck injury he had last year. They lose 6 starters. They have a new defensive coordinator. It's year 2 of an offensive coordinator, but I feel like we've said this 15 different times on this podcast. We have a quarterback that's in his 6th season, again, playing college football, so that's wild. But I don't trust Penn State's defense right away to be as good as it was last year, because I do think there's just a process of getting used to a new defensive coordinator, getting used to a new system, bringing in new players, and no Manny Diaz, just called Manny Defense. That would actually be a pretty good nickname.
Manny Defense.
Manny Diaz is a very good defensive coordinator, but still new system, new guys. And you're going into Purdue, a tough place to play at night, a pretty cool college football environment. If we're talking about, watching college football for not just the teams that are going to win a title, but for teams that are, fun to watch, Purdue has a very cool night game environment. They bring back a lot of talent on offense. They lose David Bell, but they bring in the 2 transfer receivers from Iowa. One's Tyrone Tracy, blanking on the other guy's name. And you have Aiden O'Connell, who's coming back fresh off throwing for 4,100 yards and averaging 30 points a game. I think they're going to be able to score. I think they're going to be able to put up 26, 27, 30 points, something along those lines. And I'm not sure Penn State and Sean Clifford are going to be able to score with them, especially in an environment like that early on. I mean, James Franklin has recruited great, and they haven't been able to put a consistent product on the field. And I don't really see why that's going to start changing now. And I think Purdue is kind of a program on the right track, and they do a lot of things that are going to give Penn State problems. I don't think they're a good matchup for Penn State.
Matt, do you like Charlie Jones? He's the Iowa transfer.
Okay, he's the other one?
Yeah.
They have 2 receivers from Iowa transferred in.
Yeah, Charlie Jones he's the slot receiver who is a pretty dynamic punt returner, and he's got some wheels on him. So I'm excited to see him kind of.
Oh, you're the one. That's the one that you were telling me you're hoping was going to transfer.
Notre Dame tried to get him, and he wanted to go to Purdue.
Boiler up, I guess. What are you guys' thoughts on this one? I know I've talked about this one on several different platforms, multiple different times. I need to hear another opinion. Tell me why I'm wrong, why I'm right. Give me something.
Most of the smart people who I read and the analytical previews that I see seem to have Penn State as somewhere between a 5 and 7 point favorite in this game, and a game that they're only favored by 3.5. To me, this game kind of screams over. I don't really want to get involved in a side, because I think on a neutral, I think Penn State's probably just way more talented overall than Purdue. but I have no desire to get involved in a side. But you brought up all of the points. Like Purdue is always going to be an offense-heavy team with Braum and O'Connell's back, and the offense is going to hum. And I know losing David Bell, I think might matter a little bit more. But I think on the other side of the ball, I think losing Karlaftis is just such a huge loss for Purdue. Like they're not a program. We talked about this with a few other teams. Like there's just some teams where if you have this guy who's this great NFL prospect and you lose him, you don't just turn over talent the way that the Alabamas and Ohio States of the world do. They're also on defensive coordinator 4 in the last 4 years. Brad Lambert did a really good job turning them into arguably like a top 30 defense in a lot of the different metrics that matter. And they lose him. He goes to Wake Forest. So it's another new defensive system. So for me, I just see this being a game that we might see some points. I think it's a game where Purdue, I don't think is going to win a lot of games, particularly early with defense. And so, Sean Clifford, when he's been healthy, he's been pretty good. Penn State's going to have some talent, probably a pretty significant, like I said, talent edge overall. So I probably, if I had to go to a side or a total here, I'd probably go the over. I haven't kind of come down if I'm going to bet it or not, but to me, my instinct says over whatever the total is right now.
I think it's 52.5.
Yeah, it's low.
I really like that over.
It's a little bit low to me. So that one kind of screams a little bit overish to me.
Yeah, 52.5 seems really low to me as well, especially with Karlaftis being gone, because it's like you said, when a team like Purdue loses a first round defensive end, the amount of pressure that puts on opposing quarterbacks and helps out the linebackers, helps out the secondary. It's really a trickle down effect when you don't have someone to quickly replace there. And so I'm buying Sean Clifford this year with a healthy leg. People forget that a couple years ago he was a 400 plus yard rusher, 5 touchdown rusher. And so again, if you lose a big defensive end, I think he'll be able to extend a lot of plays. And again, I think for me, this game at Purdue in night games, weird things happen in West Lafayette at night. So I'm just sticking with the points here as well, because I think that should be a relatively safe bet, especially coming out early in the gates. I don't love either defense. I love Penn State's talent more. And also I said this on our preview show, Sean Clifford ditched the goatee, has a beard. So he's kind of a little edgier now. He's not so much of a dork. So we'll see if that translates to the on-field. Yeah, again, we're beard guys. We're not goatee guys. So again, he's got our backing without even realizing it, Matt.
So are we going to get a quarterback facial hair breakdown before every game we talk about?
When they have notable facial hair.
We didn't get the JT Daniels. We didn't get the JT Daniels Buccaneer. He just kind of has the Buck mascot thing. That's Cam Rising.
He's an ugly Cam Rising.
Yeah.
So is Cam Rising light then, I guess, for us?
Well, Cam Rising is hot. JT Daniels is not. And unfortunately, if you rock a goatee, if you rock a Buccaneers goatee and you're not hot, you're either like Johnny Depp or someone who's going to a creepy Pirates of the Caribbean conference. And so who do you want to be in that situation, and who do you trust? Because if you're unironically rocking a pirate goatee and you don't look hot, you're probably just love pirates.
If this hasn't swayed you guys to tune into every episode of the Blogger Bowl for our expert analysis that you can really only get here, I'm not really sure what's going to. I don't think I can top that. So in terms of preview purposes, I think that's all I got on both of the 2 big games for Thursday night. Or I guess I should say all 3 big games. The Jerry Kill Bowl we can't overlook. You guys got anything about Thursday's games before we get out of here?
Oh, just name a game and see if I've got thoughts. I've got thoughts on a lot of these games. Phil, I'll let you. I've got
let's do name that game and just throw down on the spot.
I guess no. This is never mind. Holy Cross is on Friday, so I'll save that. I'll save that for later, because there is a delicious looking over for Holy Cross revenge game against Merrimack. So we'll get into that later.
Ooh, I love it. I think there's just some things that I find interesting. There's one other, I would say, bet that I like a lot, and that's give me Fresno State and and it's a lot of points, but it's 33.5.
I'm in on that.
Cal Poly. That's at Bet Rivers or Sugar House in Connecticut and New Jersey. It's the same thing. These 2 teams played last year. It was a 63-10 game. Cal Poly was 105th in FCS and pass efficiency defense last year. They couldn't stop any. I mean, part of that was they played against Fresno State, but they were a really bad pass defense. They've been a really bad defense for a couple of years now. They got their head coach is Bo Baldwin, who kind of built Eastern Washington into a powerhouse, but he has not gotten anything going.
That's kind of a cool name, though.
The only thing that might cause Fresno to not put a ton of points up is I'm imagining Jeff Tedford is probably going to be a little bit more conservative than a coach like Kalen DeBoer was, but like they were up 25. I was going to say maybe give me a first half, but like I think they're up 35-10 at halftime last year. And Hayner was throwing the ball into the third quarter, like late in the third quarter in that game. And just Cal Poly, like FCS, this is a bad FCS team playing a really, really good passing offense in Jake Hayner. So 33.5 is a lot, but I don't see how they're going to even keep this game remotely close at all. So give me Fresno State and lay the 33.5, which is a ton, but I don't care.
I think I'm going to add that to my unofficial card that we haven't submitted yet. I mean, they follow up this game with home against Oregon State and then at USC. So this is going to be probably what a coach like Jeff Tedford and most coaches, but an old school coach like Jeff Tedford probably sees as I don't want to call a scrimmage, but kind of a tune-up game where I think he's going to want his guys to get reps. He doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to – I think he's going to let his guys go, let them play probably pretty deep into the fourth quarter, halfway into the fourth quarter, because he wants them getting those reps ahead of a back-to-back Pac-12 schedule. A game against Oregon State at home that they probably should win, but then also heading into a game against USC that is going to be very tough uphill battle for them. So that's why I really do like that 33.5.
I've got Phil's speech. I'm loving the detailed analysis because I hadn't dove into the.
Phil, get me a Jake Hayner facial hair update.
While you're doing that, I have one other right now. There's one other game that I'm considering something on the card. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to play an under or a team total under. I'm kind of leaning. We love them as one of the BetSperts founders is a proud Chippewa, but I'm kind of leaning Central Michigan team total under against Oklahoma State on Thursday night. I know Oklahoma State's replacing Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator, but Derek Mason's a pretty solid defensive coordinator. He's come in. He hasn't changed a lot of what they do. It's going to be similar. The back seven on their defense is a little bit kind of work in progress, replacing some guys, including Rodrigo. If you've watched Hard Knocks, the linebacker for the Lions, Rodriguez was really good for them last year, but they're really, really good on their defensive line. They have 7 guys on their defensive line that are really good. Central Michigan, their quarterback, Daniel Richardson's a pretty good quarterback. Their running back, Lou Nichols, is a very good running back, but they're also replacing 3 or 4 offensive linemen and both of their starting tackles from a year ago against a team that is much more talented, much better than them up front. And Daniel Richardson is a statue. He had negative 38 rushing yards last year. His rushing total for this game is up on Prize Picks. Do you want to know what Prize Picks set his rushing total for this game on Thursday night at?
-5.5.
-5.5 is what they said.
Really?
Yeah.
That was the total
-5.5. So
let's go.
This was a team that last year, I think they were 35th in sack rate, but on passing downs, they were 80th because when teams knew that they could get after Daniel Richardson, he's a big dude. He does not run. So just to me, this is like one of those situations where Spencer Sanders and that offense at Oklahoma State is going to be able to score because Central Michigan's not great defensively. And if they're going to be able to pin their ears back and get after Daniel Richardson, I think it's going to be a long night. I think the team total is probably going to be set around 18. I haven't seen it up anywhere specifically yet. So probably leaning that because I do think there's a situation where kind of like I felt my worry with the Illinois game was that Illinois could really put up a lot of points and hit the over close to it by themselves. So right now I'd say lean Central Michigan under. That's the only other bet that I have. I have 2 other things. One other kind of like keep an eye on this if this is something that's up on Prize Picks, and one other game I'm just kind of interested in. But I've talked a lot, so if you guys have anything else to add, I can take a break here if there's anything else, or I can just keep ripping. You let me know.
I was just going to say that that line, the just spread overall is jumping a bunch. That was 20.5 this morning. It's already at 22.5. So just to go to your point, Dan, of getting on lines you like early. That's why, on brown bag bets, if I'm ever on Mondays, I'm going to try and give out some college football lines. That's why we're coming to you on Tuesdays with the show, because getting in on these lines on Saturday, especially with college football lines, that tend to jump quite a bit as opposed to the NFL where you might see it jump half a point. College football lines could jump 2, 3, 4 points from Monday to Saturday. So get on your picks early. If you see a line that you like, just get it right away and then take the risk that, if there's maybe a quarterback that might be questionable, all right, don't touch it. But if all health is pretty certain, if you see a line you like, get it as early as you can.
Absolutely. The other 2 things real quick, my last 2 things, Tennessee is going to score 1,000,000 points against Ball State. However, Ball State returns their entire offensive line and a 1,000-yard rusher last year. Carson Strong, who's a true freshman, ran for 1,000 yards. Pretty big talent gap there, but Tennessee was pretty bad against the run last year. So this is one of those situations where I kind of want to see how much better their defense is. I mean, it's the kind of good test, a game that they're going to win easily, but against a team that kind of the opposing team's strength fits, goes up against their big weakness from the season before. So just keep an eye on that. I mean, Tennessee's going to win by 1,000,000. So whatever.
I was going to say I like Ball State to cover because 35, especially against the run-heavy offensive Ball State, feels steep for a week.
It's a lot of points.
I love Tennessee this year, but 35 feels pretty steep for a week one against a team who's just going to try to run the ball and eat up clock and get out of there.
My problem there is if they can't run the ball at all in this game, with a possibility. Yeah. Like Tennessee, like they can run the ball all they want. Like it's a bad matchup for ball. Like forget the talent edge. Philosophically, it's a bad matchup for Ball State because Tennessee is a team that doesn't care how long they have the ball. Ball State can have the ball for 6 minutes of drive. Tennessee just wants it for 90 seconds or less so that they can score a touchdown. So like that to me is why that's kind of a spot I haven't done enough digging on. So that's my concern of like Ball State's going to want to run the ball, but good on good, like favors the better team. And that's the team that's going to try to score a lot of points. And my last one, this is just, they haven't put this up on Prize Picks, but if they do, any Toledo rushing props. Toledo playing Long Island, one of the worst rush defenses in FCS last year. Toledo was, I got to bring up my numbers. They allowed 5.18 yards per carry last year, which was 13th worst in FCS. Toledo was, I think, third, or they were in the top 10, I believe, in yards per carry themselves. Their lead back left, so if they put up DeQuan Finn, their quarterback, his rushing total on Prize Picks, play that. If they put up any of the other running backs on the team, play that. They're going to be able to run the ball on them. I have no idea. The spread's like 40, and I'm like, I'm not touching that. For, again, you talk about a team that's going to want to run the ball a lot. Toledo, that's what they excel at. So that's my deep insider pick. Really good rushing team in FBS against a really bad rush defense in FCS. But I like, let's see, what else did I like? I liked Slovis passing yards under. I liked Hooker passing yards over. I was going to tell you to take the Richardson under 5.5 rushing yards, anything Toledo related. And I think those are my looks for Prize Picks. So go play Prize Picks. I can't because I'm in Connecticut and we're not allowed. We're allowed to legally bet.
I can. We're in Illinois.
But those are my Prize Picks look. Deep dive Toledo rushing props. If you see them anywhere on anything, go ahead and play them. Prize Picks is the only place that they'll have them because it's an FCS game, but that's my last look. I'm all tapped out.
I will certainly have a Prize Picks entry going out on Thursday morning at some point on Twitter. I'll send it out. I'll retweet it from BetSpurt so everybody can see that. Phil, we got to get you on Prize Picks so you can be doing this with us too. So we'll sign you up with the BetSpurt's link so we get credit for it, obviously. But we'll get you signed up for Prize Picks.
Ooh, what we should do every week is a 3-legger, each of us 3-pick entry, each one of us pick. We'll just do Saturday, like because obviously the Thursday. Yeah. And once we get to the midweek action, once we get to some midweek action, we might have to do one on Tuesdays for midweek.
There is a
Saturday
200% chance that I'm doing what I did last year, similar to how Andy did. Picking every Euro game the last couple of years with the women's Euro this year, men's Euro last year. I did a pick or two from every Maction game last year. I am 110% doing that again. I think I was like 11-6 or something last year. So I had a pretty good year betting Maction. We're 100% going to do that. And that'll be fun to get Tuesday streams go from recapping to like previewing Maction that's about to happen that night. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But we have real life college football on Thursday, which we are all looking forward to. Some, like we said, some pretty big games or decently big games with some bigger programs. We will be back with you on Thursday. That one will be a little bit of a preview of the night's action, but more so looking forward to Saturday. And we will get some cards in and then probably have an official blog on Saturday submitted with all our cards. But we'll make some picks and stuff on Thursday and take a look towards the Saturday games. But until then, I got nothing. You guys good?
Good.
Play us out, Dan.